Good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for tuning in with your Sister Shia, here with a late night session of Sister for Sister Story Time. Currently still reading the book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall, which is located in the description box if you'd like to get a copy for yourself. We are continuing on the next chapter, which is the Tree of the Sephiroth. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. So, the Tree of Sephiroth may be considered an invaluable compendium of the secret philosophy, which originally was the spirit and soul of Chasidism or Hasidism. The Kabbalah is the priceless heritage of Israel, but each year those who comprehend its true principles become fewer in number. The Jew of today, if he lacks a realization of the profundity of his people's doctrines, is usually permeated with that most dangerous form of ignorance, modernism, and is prone to regard the Kabbalah either as an evil to be shunned like the plague or as a ridiculous superstition which has survived the black magic of the Dark Ages. Yet, without the key which the Kabbalah supplies, the spiritual mysteries of both the Old and the New Testament must remain unsolved by Jew and Gentile alike. The Sephirothic tree consists of 10 globes of luminous splendor arranged in 3 vertical columns and connected by 22 channels or paths. The 10 globes are called the Sephiroth, and to them are assigned the numbers 1 to 10. The 3 columns are called mercy on the right, severity on the left, and between them, mildness as the reconciling power. The columns may also be said to represent wisdom, strength, and beauty, which form the triune support of the universe, for it is written that the foundation of all things is the three. The 22 channels are the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and to them are assigned the major trumps of the tarot deck of symbolic cards. Eliphaz Levi declared that by arranging the tarot cards according to a definite order, man could discover all that is knowable concerning his God, his universe, and himself. When the 10 numbers which pertain to the globes, Sephiroth, are combined with the 22 letters relating to the channels, the resultant sum is 32, the number peculiar to the Kabbalistic paths of wisdom. These paths, occasionally referred to as the 32 teeth in the mouth of the vast countenance, or as the 32 nerves that branch out from the divine brain, are analogous to the first 32 degrees of Freemasonry, which elevate the candidate to the dignity of a prince of the royal secret. Kabbalists also consider it extremely significant that in the original Hebrew scriptures, the name of God should occur 32 times in the first chapter of Genesis. In the English translations of the Bible, the name appeared 33 times. In the mystic analysis of the human body, according to the rabbins, 32 spinal segments lead upward to the temple of wisdom, or the skull. The 4 Kabbalistic trees described in the preceding chapter were combined by later Jewish scholars into one all-inclusive diagram and termed by them not only the Sephirothic, but also the archetypal or heavenly Adam. According to some authorities, it is this heavenly Adam and not a terrestrial man whose creation is described in the opening chapters of Genesis. Out of the substances of this divine man, the universe was formed. In him it remains and will continue even after dissolution shall resolve the spheres back into their own primitive substance. The deity is never conceived of as actually contained in the Sephiroth, which are purely hypothetical vessels employed to define the limits of the creative essence. Adolf Frank rather likens the Sephiroth to vari-colored transparent glass bowls filled with pure light, which apparently assumes the color of its containers, but whose essential nature remains ever unchanged and unchangeable. The 10 Sephiroth composing the body of the prototypic atom, the numbers related to them, and the parts of the universe to which they correspond are as follows: the number, the Sephiroth, the universe, and the alternative. 1. Kether, the crown. Primum mobile, the fiery heavens. 2. Kokma, or wisdom, the zodiac, the first motion. 3. Binah, understanding, Saturn, the zodiac. 4. Chesed, mercy, Jupiter, Saturn. 5. Gebura, severity, Mars, Jupiter. 6. Tephereth, beauty, Sun, Mars. 7. Netza, victory, Venus, Sun. 8. Had, glory, Mercury, Venus. 9. Jasad, the foundation, Moon and Mercury. 10. Malkuth, the kingdom, elements, Moon. It must continually be emphasized that the Sephiroth and the properties assigned to them, like the tetrasis of the Pythagoreans, are merely symbols of the cosmic system with its multitude of parts. The truer and fuller meaning of these emblems may not be revealed by writing or by word of mouth, but must be defined as the result of study and meditation. In the Sefer HaZohar, it is written that there is a garment, the written doctrine which every man may see. Those with understanding do not look upon the garment, but at the body beneath it, the intellectual and philosophical code. The wisest of all, however, the servants of the heavenly king, look at nothing save the soul, the spiritual doctrine, which is the eternal and ever springing root of the law. Of this great truth, Eliphas Levi also writes, declaring that none can gain entrance to the secret house of wisdom unless he wear the voluminous cape of Apollonius of Tyana and carry in his hand the lamp of Hermes. The cape signifies the qualities of self-possession and self-reliance, which must envelope the seeker as a cloak of strength, while the ever-learning lamp of the sage represents the illumined mind and perfectly balanced intellect, without which the mystery of the ages can never be solved. The Sephirothic tree is sometimes depicted as a human body, thus more definitely establishing the true identity of the first, or heavenly man, Adam Kadmon, the idea of the universe. The 10 divine globes, Sephiroth, are then considered as analogous to the 10 sacred members and organs of the Protognos, according to the following arrangement. Kether is the crown of the prototypic head and perhaps refers to the pineal gland. Kokma and Binah are the right and left hemispheres, respectively, of the great brain. Chesed and Gebura Pakad are the right and left arms, respectively, signifying the active creative members of the grand man. Tephereth is the heart, or, according to some, the entire viscera. Netza and Had are the right and left legs, respectively, or the supports of the world. Jesad is the generative system, or the foundation of form. The Malkuth represents the 2 feet, or the base of being. Occasionally, Jesad is considered as the male and Malkuth as the female generative power. The grand man thus conceived is the gigantic image of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, with head of gold, arms and chest of silver, body of brass, legs of iron, and feet of clay. The medieval Kabbalists also assigned one of the 10 commandments and a 10th part of the Lord's Prayer in sequential order to each of the 10 Sephiroth. Concerning the emanations from Kether, which established themselves as 3 triads of creative powers, termed in the Sefer HaZohar 3 heads each with 3 faces, H.P. Blavatsky writes, This Kether was the first Sephiroth, containing in herself the other 9 Sephiroth, or intelligences. In their totality and unity, they represent the archetypal man, Adam Kadmon, who in his individuality or unity is yet dual or bisexual, the Greek Didymus, for he is the prototype of all humanity. Thus, we obtain 3 trinities, each contained in a head. In the first head or face, the 3-faced Hindu Trimurti, who we find Sephirothic, the first androgyny, at the apex of the upper triangle, emitting Hakama or Kokma, or wisdom, a masculine and active potency, also called Ja, and Binah, or intelligence, a female and passive potency, also represented by the name Jehovah. These 3 form the first trinity or face of the Sephiroth. This triad emanated Hesed, or mercy, a masculine active potency, also called El, from which emanated Gabura, or justice, also called Eloah, a feminine passive potency. From the union of these 2 was produced Tephereth, beauty, clemency, the spiritual sun, known by the divine name Elohim, and the second triad, face or head, was formed. These emanating in their turn the masculine potency Netzah, firmness, or Jehovah Sabaoth, who issued the feminine passive potency Had, splendor, or Elohim Sabaoth. The 2 produced Jasad, foundation, who is the mighty living one El Shai, thus yielding the third trinity or head. The 10th Sephiroth is rather a duad, and is represented on the diagrams as the lowest circle. It is Malkuth, or kingdom, and Shekinah, also called Adonai, and cherubim among the angelic host. The first head is called the intellectual world, the second head is the sensuous, or the world of perception, and the third is the material or physical world. The 4 Sephirothic trees. The 40 concentric circles shown in the large circular cut in the preceding chapter are here arranged as 4 trees, each consisting of 10 circles. These trees disclose the organization of the hierarchies controlling the destinies of all creation. The trees are the same in each of the 4 worlds, but the powers vested in the globes express themselves differently through the substances of each world, resulting in endless differentiation. Among the later Kabbalahs, there is also a division of the Sephirothic tree into 5 parts, in which the distribution of the globes is according to the following order. 1. Macro Prosophis, or the great face, is the term applied to Kether as the first and most exalted of the Sephiroth, and includes the 9 potencies of Sephiroth issuing from Kether. 2. Abba, the great father, is the term generally applied to Kokma, universal wisdom, the first emanation of Kether, but according to Ibn Gibral, Kokma represents the sun, the logos, or the word born from the union of Kether and Binah. 3. Ima, the great mother, is the name by which Binah, or the third Sephirah, is generally known. This is the Holy Ghost, from whose body the generations issue forth. Being the third person of the creative triad, it corresponds to Jehovah, the demiurgus. 4. Microprosophis, or the lesser face, is composed of the 6 Sephiroth, Chesed, Geburah, Tephereth, Netzah, Had, and Jesad. The microprosophis is commonly called the lesser atom, or Zaire Anpin, whereas the macroprosophis, or superior atom, is Arik Anpin. The lesser face is properly symbolized by the 6-pointed star, or interlaced triangles of Zion, and also by the 6 faces of the cube. It represents the directions north, east, south, west, up, and down, and also the first 6 days of creation. In his list of the parts of the microprosophis, McGregor Mathers includes Binah as the first and superior part of the lesser atom, thus making his constitution septenary. If microprosophis be considered as sexpartite, then his globes, Sephiroth, are analogous to the 6 days of creation, and the 10th globe, Malkuth, to the Sabbath of rest. 5. The bride of Microprosopis is Malkuth, the epitome of the Sephiroth, its quaternary constitution being composed of blendings of the 4 elements. This is the divine Eve that is taken out of the side of Microprosopis and combines the potencies of the entire Kabbalistic tree in one sphere, which may be termed man. A table of Sephirothic correspondences from Flood's Collectio Operum. The above diagram has been specially translated from the Latin as being of unique value to students of Kabbalism, and also as an example of Robert Flood's unusual ability in assembling tables of correspondences. Robert Flood ranks among the most eminent Rosicrucians and Freemasons. In fact, he has often been called the first English Rosicrucian. He has written several valuable documents directly bearing upon the Rosicrucian enigma. It is significant that the most important of his works should be published at the same time as those of Bacon, Shakespeare, and the first Rosicrucian authors. According to the mysteries of the Sephiroth, the order of creation, or the divine lightning flash which zigzags through the 4 worlds according to the order of the divine emanations, is thus described. From Ein Sof, the nothing and all, the eternal and unconditioned potency issues Macroprosopis, the long face of whom it is written, within his skull exist daily 13,000 myriads of worlds which draw their existence from him and by him are upheld. See the Greater Holy Assembly. Macroprosopis, the directionalized wheel of Ein Sof, corresponding to Kether, the crown of the Sephiroth, gives birth out of himself to the 9 lesser spheres, of which he is the sum and the overbrooding cause. The 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, by the various combinations of which the laws of the universe are established, constitute the scepter of Macroprosopis, which he wields from his flaming throne in the Atzilithic world. From this eternal and ancient androgyny, Kether, come forth Kokma, the great father, and Binah, the great mother. These two are usually referred to as Abba and Ima, respectively, the first male and the first female, the prototypes of sex. These correspond to the first 2 letters of the sacred name Jehovah, IHVH. The father is the H or the I, and the mother is the H. Abba and Amma symbolize the creative activities of the universe and are established in the creative world of Bria. In the Sefer HaZohar it is written, and therefore are all things established in the equality of male and female, for were it not so, how could they subsist? This beginning is the father of all things, the father of all fathers, and both are mutually bound together, and the one path shineth into the other. Kokma, wisdom, as the father, Binah, understanding, as the mother. There is a difference of opinion concerning certain of the relationships of the parts of the first triad. Some Kabbalists, including Ibn Gibral, consider Kether as the father, Binah as the mother, and Kokma as the son. In this later arrangement, wisdom, which is the attribute of the son, becomes the creator of the lower spheres. The symbol of Binah is the dove, a proper emblem for the brooding maternal instinct of the universal mother. Because of the close similarity of their creative triad to the Christian Trinity, the later Kabbalists rearranged the first 3 Sephiroth and added a mysterious point called Da'ath, a hypothetical 11th Sephirah. This is located where the horizontal line connecting Kokma and Binah crosses the vertical line joining Kether and Tephereth. While Da'ath is not mentioned by the first Kabbalist, it is a highly important element, and its addition to the Sephirothic tree was not made without full realization of the significance of such action. If Kokma be considered the active intelligent energy of Kether, and Binah, the receptive capacity of Kether, then Da'ath becomes the thought which, created by Kokma, flows into Binah. The postulation of Da'ath clarifies the problem of the creative trinity, for here it is diagrammatically represented as consisting of Kokma, the Father, Binah, the Mother or Holy Ghost, and Da'ath, the word by which the worlds were established. Isaac Meyer discounts the importance of Da'ath, declaring it a subterfuge to conceal the fact that Kether, and not Kokma, is the true father of the creative triad. He makes no attempt to give a satisfactory explanation for the symbolism of this hypothetical Sephirah. The Sephirothic tree of the later Kabbalists, translated from Kircher's Oedipus Egypticus. Having demonstrated that the Kabbalah divided the universe into 4 worlds, each consisting of 10 spheres, it is necessary to consider next how the 10 spheres of each world were arranged into what is called the Sephirothic tree. This tree is composed of 10 circles representing the numbers 1 to 20 and connected together by 22 canals, the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. The 10 numbers plus the 22 letters result in the occult number 32, which, according to the Mishnah, signifies the 32 paths of wisdom. Letters and numbers, according to the Kabbalists, are the keys to all knowledge, for by a secret system of arranging them, the mysteries of creation are revealed. For this reason, they are called the paths of wisdom. This occult fact is carefully concealed in the 32 degree of Freemasonry. There are 4 trees, one in each of the 4 worlds established in the preceding chapter. The first is in the Atzalithic world, the 10 circles being the 10 globes of light established in the Mist Divine Soft. The powers and attributes of this tree are reflected into each of the 3 lower worlds, the form of the tree remaining the same, but its power diminishing as it descends. To further complicate their doctrine, the Kabbalists created another tree, which was a composite of all 4 of the world trees, but consisted of only 10 globes. In this single tree were condensed all the arcana previously scattered through the voluminous archives of Kabbalistic literature. According to the original conception, from the union of the Divine Father and the Divine Mother is produced Microprosopis, the short face of the lesser countenance, which is established in the Yetziratic world of formation and corresponds to the letter V in the great name. The 6 powers of Microprosopis flow form and are contained in their own source, which is Binah, the mother of the lesser atom. These constitute the spheres of the sacred planets. Their name is Elohim, and they move upon the face of the deep. The 10th Sephirah, Malkuth, the kingdom, is described as the bride of the lesser atom, created back to back with her Lord, and to it is assigned the final H, the last letter of the sacred name. The dwelling place of Malkuth is in the 4th world, Asaya, and it is composed of all the superior powers reflected into the elements of the terrestrial sphere. Thus, it will be seen that the Kabbalistic tree extends through 4 worlds, with its branches in matter and its roots in the Ancient of Ancients, Macroprosopis. 3 vertical columns support the universal system, as typified by the Sephirothic tree. The central pillar has its own foundation in Kether, the eternal one. It passes downward through the hypothetical Sephirah, Da'ath, and then through Tiferet and Jasad, with its lower end resting upon the firm foundation of Malkuth, the last of the globes. The true import of the central pillar is equilibrium. It demonstrates how the deity always manifests by emanating poles of expression from the midst of itself, but remaining free from the illusion of polarity. If the numbers of the 4 Sephiroth connected by this column be added together, 1 plus 6 plus 9 plus 10, the sum is 26, the number of Jehovah. See chapter on Pythagorean mathematics. The column on the right, which is called Jakim, has its foundation on Kokma, the outpouring wisdom of God. The 3 globes suspended from it are all masculine potencies. The column at the left is called Boaz. The three globes upon it are feminine and receptive potencies, for it is founded in understanding, a receptive and maternal potency. Wisdom, it will be noted, is considered as radiant or outpouring, and understanding as receptive or something which is filled by the flowing of wisdom. The three pillars are ultimately united in Malkuth, in which all the powers of the superior worlds are manifested. The four globes upon the central column reveal the function of the creative power in the various worlds. In the first world, the creative power is will, the one divine cause. In the second world, the hypothetical da'ath, the word coming forth from the divine thought. In the third world, Teferet, the sun or focal point between God and nature. In the fourth world, it is twofold, being the positive and negative poles of the reproductive system, of which Jasad is the male and Malkuth the female. In Kircher's Sephirothic tree, it should be especially noted that the ornaments of the tabernacle appear in the various parts of the diagram. These indicate a direct relationship between the sacred house of God and the universe, a relationship which must always be considered as existing between the deity through whose activity the world is produced and the world itself, which must be the house or vehicle of that deity. Could the modern scientific world, but since the true profundity of these philosophical deductions of the ancients, would realize that those who fabricated the structure of the Kabbalah possessed a knowledge of the celestial plan comparable in every aspect with that of the modern savant. The Tetragrammaton, or the four-lettered name of God, written thus, Yod He Bad He, is pronounced Jehovah. The first letter is Yod, the germ, the life, the flame, the cause, the one, and the most fundamental of the Jewish phallic emblems. Its numerical value is 10, and it is to be considered as the one containing the 10. In the Kabbalah, it is declared that a Yod is in reality three Yods, of which the first is the beginning, the second is the center, and the third is the end. Its throne is the Sephirah Kokma, according to Ibn Gibral Kether, from which it goes forth to impregnate Binah, which is the first Hay. The result of this union is Teferet, which is the Va, whose power is 6, and which symbolizes the 6 members of the lesser atom. The final Hay is Malkuth, the inferior mother, partaking in part of the potencies of the divine mother, the first Hay. By placing the 4 letters of the Tetragrammaton in a vertical column, a figure closely resembling the human body is produced, with Yod for the head, the first Hay for the arms and shoulders, Va for the trunk of the body, and the final Hay for the hips and legs. If the Hebrew letters be exchanged for their English equivalents, the form is not materially changed or the analogy altered. It is also extremely significant that by inserting the letter Shin in the middle of the name Jehovah, the word Jehoshua or Jesus is formed thus. In the Kabbalistic mysteries, according to Eliphas Levi, the name Jehovah is occasionally written by connecting together 24 dots, the 24 powers before the throne, and it is believed that the name of the power of evil is the sign of Jehovah reversed or inverted. Of the great word, Albert Pike writes, the true word of a Mason is to be found in the concealed and profound meaning of the ineffable name of deity communicated by God to Moses, and which meaning was long lost by the very precautions taken to conceal it. The true pronunciation of that name was in truth a secret, in which, however, was involved the far more profound secret of its meaning. In that meaning is included all the truth that can be known by us in regard to the nature of God. The Sephiroth in the form of the solar system, from Maurice's Indian Antiquities. Thomas Maurice reproduces the above engraving, which is modification of the elaborate tree on the preceding page. The Sephiroth are here superimposed, decreasing in size as they decrease in power and dignity. Thus, the crown is the greatest and the all inclusive, and the kingdom, which represents the physical universe, is the smallest and of least importance. Kabbalistic keys to the creation of man. Henry Stephan, in A World of Wonders, published in 1607, mentions a monk of St. Anthony who declared that while in Jerusalem, the patriarch of that city had shown him not only one of the ribs of the Word made flesh and some rays from the Star of Bethlehem, but also the snout of a seraph, a fingernail of a cherub, the horns of Moses, and a casket containing the breath of Christ. To a people believing implicitly in a seraph sufficiently tangible to have its proboscis preserved, the more profound issues of Judaistic philosophy must necessarily be incomprehensible. Nor is it difficult to imagine the reaction taking place in the mind of some ancient sage should he hear that a cherub, which, according to St. Augustine, signifies the evangelist, according to Philo Judaeus, the outermost circumference of the entire heavens, and according to several of the church fathers, the wisdom of God, had sprouted fingernails. The hopeless confusion of divine principles with the allegorical figures created to represent them to the limited faculties of the uninitiated has resulted in the most atrocious misconceptions of spiritual truths. Concepts well nigh as preposterous as these, however, still stand as adamantine barriers to a true understanding of Old and New Testament symbolism. For until man disentangles his reasoning powers from the web of venerated absurdities in which his mind has lain ensnared for centuries, how can truth ever be discovered? The Old Testament, especially the Pentateuch, contains not only the traditional account of the creation of the world and of man, but also locked within it the secrets of the Egyptian initiators of the Moses concerning the genesis of the God man, the initiate, and the mystery of his rebirth through philosophy. While the lawgiver of Israel is known to have compiled several works other than those generally attributed to him, the writings now commonly circulated as the purported sixth and seventh books of Moses are in reality spurious treatises on black magic foisted on the credulous during the Middle Ages. Out of the hundreds of millions of pious and thoughtful students of Holy Writ, it is almost inconceivable that but a mere handful have sensed the sublimity of the esoteric teachings of Sod, the Jewish mysteries of Adonai. Yet familiarity with the three Kabbalistic processes termed Gematria, Notarikon, and Termura makes possible the discovery of many of the profoundest truths of ancient Jewish super psychics or physics. By gematria is meant not only the exchange of letters for their numerical equivalents, but also the method of determining by an analysis of its measurements the mystic purpose for which a building or other object was constructed. S. L. McGregor Mathers in the Kabbalah Unveiled gives this example of the application of gematria. Thus, also the passage Genesis 18, 18 and 2. Vehenna Shalisha, and lo, 3 men equals a numerical value. Elo, Michael, Gabriel, Ve Raphael. These are Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael for each phrase equals 701. Assuming the sides of a scalene to be 11, 9, and 6 inches, a triangle of such dimensions would then be an appropriate symbol of Jehovah, for the sum of its 3 sides would be 26. The numerical value of the Hebrew word IHVH. Gematria also includes the system of discovering the arcane meaning of a word by analyzing the size and arrangement of the strokes employed in the formation of its various letters. Gematria was employed by the Greeks as well as the Jews. The books of the New Testament, particularly those attributed to St. John, contain many examples of its use. Nicephorus Callistus declared the gospel according to St. John to have been discovered in a cavern under the temple at Jerusalem. The volume having been secreted long anterior to the Christian era. The existence of interpolated material in the fourth gospel substantiates the belief that the work was originally written without any specific reference to the man Jesus. The statements therein accredited to him being originally mystical discourses delivered by the personification of the universal mind. The remaining Johannine writings, the epistles, and the apocalypse are enshrouded by a similar veil of mystery. By Notaricon, each letter of a word may become the initial character of a new word. Thus, from Brashith, first word in the book of Genesis, are extracted 6 words which mean that in the beginning the Elohim saw that Israel would accept the law. Mr. McGregor Mathers also gives 6 additional examples of Notaricon formed from the above word by Solomon Mir ben Moses, a medieval Kabbalist. From the famous acrostic ascribed to the Erythraean Sibyl, St. Augustine derived the word ix, what is that? Jesus, which by Notaricon was expanded into the phrase Jesus Christ, Son of God, Savior. By another use of Notaricon, directly the reverse of the first, the initial, last, or middle letters of the words of a sentence may be joined together to form a new word or words. For example, the name Amen may be extracted from the Lord is the faithful King. Because they had embodied these cryptic devices in their sacred writings, the ancient priests admonished their disciples never to translate, edit, or rewrite the contents of the sacred books. Under the general heading of Temura, several systems may be grouped and explained in which various letters are substituted for other letters according to prearranged tables or certain mathematical arrangements of letters, regular or irregular. Thus, the alphabet may be broken into 2 equal parts and written in horizontal lines so that the letters of the lower row can be exchanged for those of the upper row or vice versa. By this procedure, the letters of the word kuzu may be exchanged for those or IHVH. The tetragrammaton. In another form of Temura, the letters are merely rearranged. IHVH is the stone which is found in the center of the world, from which point the earth spread out on all sides. When broken in two, the stone is, which means the placing of God. Again, Temura may consist of a simple anagram, as in the English word live, which reversed becomes evil. The various systems of Temura are among the most complicated and profound devices of the ancient rabbins. Among theological scholars, there is a growing conviction that the hitherto accepted translations of the scriptural writings do not adequately express the spirit of the original documents. The vision of Ezekiel from the Bear Bible. This plate, which is from the first Protestant Bible published in Spanish, shows the Merkabah, or chariot of Jehovah, which appeared to Ezekiel by the river Shabar. The prophet beheld 4 strange creatures, each having 4 heads, 4 wings, and brazen hoofs like those of a calf. And there were 4 wheels, filled with eyes. Where the cherubim went, the wheels went also. The space between the cherubim and the wheels was filled with coals of fire. Upon the top of the chariot was a throne, upon which sat the likeness of a man, Ezekiel fell upon his knees when he beheld the Merkabah surrounded by a whirlwind of clouds and flames, A, B, and C. A hand, K, reached out from the clouds, and the prophet was ordered to eat of a scroll which the hand held forth. According to the mystics, the wheels supporting the throne of God represent the orbits of the planets, and the entire solar system is properly the Merkabah, or chariot of God. One of the divisions of the Kabbalah, that dealing with the arts and sciences of those planes which are under the heavens, is called the Merkabah. In the Zohar, it is written that the celestial throne or Ezekiel's vision signifies the traditional law. The appearance of a man sitting upon the throne represents the written law. Philo-Judaeus, in describing the cherubim upon the Ark of the Covenant, declares that the figures are an intimation of the revolutions of the whole heavens, one of the cherubim representing the outer circumference and the other the inner sphere. Facing each other, they represent the two hemispheres of the world. The flaming sword of the cherubim of Genesis is the central motion and agitation of the heavenly bodies. In all probability, it also represents the solar ray. After the first copy of the Book of God, writes H.P. Blavatsky, has been edited and launched on the world by Hilkiah, this copy disappears, and Ezra has to make a new Bible, which Judas Maccabeus finishes. When it was copied from the horned letters into square letters, it was corrupted beyond recognition. The Masorah completed the work of destruction. Finally, we have a text not 900 years old, abounding with omissions, interpolations, and premeditated perversions. Professor Crawford Howell Toy of Harvard notes, manuscripts were copied and recopied by scribes who not only sometimes made errors in letters and words, but permitted themselves to introduce new material into the text or to combine in one manuscript without mark of division, writings composed by different men. Instances of these sorts of procedure are found especially in Micah and Jeremiah, and the groups of prophecies which go under the names of Isaiah and Zechariah. Does the mutilated condition of the Holy Bible, in part accidental, represent nonetheless a definite effort to confuse the uninitiated reader and thus better conceal the secrets of the Jewish Tanaim? Never has the Christian world been in possession of those hidden scrolls which contain the secret doctrine of Israel. And if the Kabbalists were correct in their assumption that the lost books of the Mosaic mysteries have been woven into the fabric of the Torah, then the scriptures are veritably books within books. In rabbinical circles, the opinion is prevalent that Christendom never has understood the Old Testament and probably never will. In fact, the feeling exists in some quarters, at least, that the Old Testament is the exclusive possession of the Jewish faith. Also, that Christianity, after its unrelenting persecution of the Jew, takes unwarranted liberties when it includes strictly Jewish writings in its sacred canon. But, as noted by one rabbi, if Christianity must use the Jewish scriptures, it should at least strive to do so with some degree of intelligence. In the opening chapter of Genesis, it is stated that after creating light and separating it from darkness, the seven Elohim divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. Having thus established the inferior universe in perfect accord with the esoteric teachings of the Hindu, Egyptian, and Greek mysteries, the Elohim next turned their attention to the production of flora and fauna, and lastly, man. And God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Consider in thoughtful silence the startling use of pronouns in the above extract from the most perfect example of English literature. When the plural and androgynous Hebrew word Elohim was translated into the singular and sexless word God, the opening chapters of Genesis were rendered comparatively meaningless. It may have been feared that had the word been correctly translated as the male and female creative agencies, the Christians would have been justly accused of worshiping a plurality of gods in the face of their repeated claims to monotheism. The plural form of the pronouns us and our reveals unmistakably, however, the pantheistic nature of divinity. Further, the androgynous constitution of the Elohim, or God, is disclosed in the next verse, where he, referring to God, is said to have created man in his own image, male and female. or more properly, as the division of the sexes had not yet taken place, male female. This is a death blow to the time-honored concept that God is a masculine potency as portrayed by Michelangelo on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. The Elohim then ordered these androgynous beings to be fruitful. Note that neither the masculine nor the feminine principle as yet existed in a separate state. And lastly, note the word replenish. The prefix re denotes back to an original or former state or position, or repetition or restoration. This definite reference to a humanity existing prior to the creation of man, described in Genesis, must be evident to the most casual reader of Scripture. An examination of Bible dictionaries, encyclopedias, and commentaries discloses the plural form of the word Elohim to be beyond the comprehension of their respected authors and editors. The new Schaff-Herzog Encyclopedia of Religious Knowledge thus sums up the controversy over the plural form of the word Elohim. Does it now, or did it originally signify plurality of divine being? A dictionary of the Bible, edited by James Hastings, contains the following conclusion, which echoes the sentiments of more critical etymologists of the Bible. The use of the plural Elohim is also difficult to explain. Dr. Habernick considers the plural form Elohim to signify the abundance and super richness existing in the divine being. His statement, which appears in the Popular and Critical Bible Encyclopedia, is representative of the efforts made to circumvent this extremely damaging word. The International Standard Bible Dictionary considers the explanations offered by modern theologians, of which Dr. Habernick's is a fair example, to be too ingenious to have been conceived by the early Hebrews, and maintains that the word represents the survival of a polytheistic stage of Semitic thought. The Jewish Encyclopedia supports the latter assumption with the following concise statement. As far as epigraphic material, traditions, and folklore throw light on the question, the Semites are shown to be of polytheistic leanings. Various schools of philosophy, both Jewish and Gentile, have offered explanations, erudite and otherwise, of the identity of Adam. In this primordial man, the Neoplatonists recognized the Platonic idea of humanity, the archetype or pattern of the genus Homo. Philo-Judaeus considered Adam to represent the human mind, which could understand and hence give names to the creatures about it, but could not comprehend and hence left nameless the mystery of its own nature. Adam was also likened to the Pythagorean monad, which by virtue of its state of perfect unity could dwell in the Edenic sphere. When through a process akin to fission, the monad became the duad, the proper symbol of discord and delusion. The creature thus formed was exiled from its celestial home. Thus, the twofold man was driven from the paradise belonging to the undivided creation, and cherubim and a flaming sword were placed on guard at the gates of the casual world. Consequently, only after the reestablishment of unity within himself can man regain his primal spiritual state. According to the Isurim, the secret doctrine of Israel taught the existence of four Adams, each dwelling in one of the four Kabbalistic worlds. The first, or heavenly, Adam dwelt alone in the Atzalithic sphere, and within his nature existed all spiritual and material potentialities. The second Adam resided in the sphere of Bria. Like the first Adam, this being was androgynous, and the 10th division of its body, its heel, Malkuth, corresponded to the church of Israel that shall bruise the serpent's head. The third Adam, likewise androgynous, was clothed in the body of light and abode in the sphere of Yetzirah. The fourth Adam was merely the third Adam after the fall into the sphere of Messiah, at which time the spiritual man took upon himself the animal shell or coat of skins. The fourth Adam was still considered as a single individual, though division had taken place within his nature, and two shells or physical bodies existed, in one of which was incarnated the masculine and in the other the feminine potency. For further details, consult Isaac Meyer. The universal nature of man is revealed in the various accounts concerning the substances of which he was formed. It was originally ordained that the dirt to be used in fashioning him was to be derived from the seven worlds. As these planes, however, refused to give of their substances, the Creator wrenched from them by force the elements to be employed in the Adamic constitution. St. Augustine discovered a notaricon in the name of Adam. He showed that the four letters ADAM are the first letters of the four words Anatole, Dices, Arctos, Mesimbria, the Greek names for the four corners of the world. The same author also sees in Adam a prototype of Christ, for he writes, Adam sleeps that Eve may be formed. Christ dies that the church may be formed. While Adam sleeps, Eve is formed from his side. When Christ is dead, his side is smitten with a spear, and there flow forth sacraments to form the church. Adam himself was the figure of him that was to come. In his recent work, Judaism, George Foot Moore thus describes the proportions of the Adamic man. He was a huge mass that filled the whole world to all the points of the compass. The dust of which his body was formed was gathered from every part of the world, or from the site of the future altar. Of greater interest is the notion that man was created androgynous, because it is probably a bit of foreign lore adapted to the first pair in Genesis. R. Samuel Nahman, 3rd century, said, when God created Adam, he created him facing both ways. Then he saved him in two and made two backs, one for each figure. The Zohar holds the concept of two Adams. The first, a divine being who, stepping forth from the highest original darkness, created the second, or earthly Adam in his own image. The higher or celestial man was the causal sphere with its divine potencies and potentialities considered as a gigantic personality, its members, according to the Gnostics, being the basic elements of existence. This Adam may have been symbolized as facing both ways to signify that with one face it looked upon the proximate cause of itself, and with the other face looked upon the vast sea of cosmos into which it was to be immersed. Philosophically, Adam may be regarded as representative of the full spiritual nature of man, androgynous and nor subject to decay. Of this fuller nature, the mortal man has little comprehension. Just as spirit contains matter within itself and is both the source and ultimate of the state denominated matter, so Eve represents the lower or mortal portion that is taken out of or has temporal existence in the greater and fuller spiritual creation. Being representative of the inferior part of the individual, Eve is the temptress who, conspiring with the serpent of mortal knowledge, caused Adam to sink into a trance-like condition in which he was unconscious of his own higher self. When Adam seemingly awoke, he actually sank into sleep, for he no longer was in the spirit but in the body. Division having taken place within him, the true Adam rested in paradise, while his lesser part incarnated in a material organism, Eve, and wandered in the darkness of mortal existence. The followers of Muhammad apparently sense more accurately than the uninitiated of other sects the true mystic import of paradise. They realized that prior to his fall, the dwelling place of man was not in a physical garden in any particular part of the earth, but rather in a higher sphere, the angelic world, watered by four mystical streams of life. After his banishment from paradise, Adam alighted on the island of Ceylon, and this spot is sacred to certain Hindu sects who recognized the old island of Lanka, once presumably connected with the mainland by a bridge, as the actual site of the Garden of Eden from which the human race migrated. According to the Arabian Nights, Sir Richard Burton's translation, Adam's footprint may still be seen on the top of the Ceylonese mountain. In the Islamic legends, Adam was later reunited with his wife, and after his death, his body was brought to Jerusalem subsequent to the flood for burial by Melchizedek. See the Quran. The word Adam signifies a species or race, and only for lack of proper understanding has Adam been considered as an individual. As the microcosm, the macrocosm, Adam is the gigantic androgyny, even the demiurges. As the microcosm, he is the chief production of the demiurges, and within the nature of the microcosm, the demiurges established all the qualities and powers which he himself possessed. The demiurges, however, did not possess immortality and therefore could not bestow it upon Adam. According to legend, the demiurges strove to keep man from learning the incompleteness of his maker. The Adamic man consequently partook of the qualities and characteristics of the angels who were the ministers of the demiurges. It was affirmed by the Gnostic Christians that the redemption of humanity was assured through the descent of Nos, or Nos, universal mind, who was a great spiritual being superior to the demiurges and who, entering into the constitution of man, conferred conscious immortality upon the demiurgic fabrications. That phallic symbolism occupies an important place in early Jewish mysticism is indisputable. Hargrave Jennings sees in the figure of Adam a type of the lingam of Shiva, which was a stone representative of the creative power of the world generator. In Gregory's works, writes Jennings, is a passage to the effect that Noah daily prayed in the ark before the body of Adam, or before the phallus, Adam being the primitive phallus, great procreator of the human race. It may possibly seem strange, he says, that this orison should be daily said before the body of Adam, but it is a most confessed tradition among the Eastern men that Adam was commanded by God that his dead body should be kept above ground till a fullness of time should come to commit it to the middle of the earth by a priest of the Most High God. This means Mount Moriah, the Meru of India. This body of Adam was embalmed and transmitted from father to son till at last it was delivered up by Lamech into the hands of Noah. This interpretation somewhat clarifies the Kabbalistic assertion that in the first Adam were contained all the souls of the Israelites. Though, according to the Aurea Legenda, Adam was buried with the 3 seeds of the tree of knowledge in his mouth, it should be borne in mind that apparently conflicting myths were often woven around a single individual. One of the profound mysteries of Kabbalism is that set forth in the Notarikon, based upon the letters of the name Adam, ADM. These 3 letters form the initials of the names Adam, David, and the Messiah, and these 3 personalities were said to contain one soul. As this soul represents the world soul of humanity, Adam signifies the involving soul, the Messiah, the evolving soul, and David, that condition of the soul termed epigenesis. In common with certain philosophic institutions of Asia, the Jewish mysteries contained a strange doctrine concerning the shadows of the gods. Gazing down into the abyss, the Elohim beheld their own shadows, and from these shadows patterned the inferior creation. In the dramatic representation of the creation of man in the mysteries, writes the anonymous master of Balliol College, the Alaim or Elohim were represented by men who, when sculpturing the form of an Adamite being, of a man, traced the outline of it on their own shadow, or modeled it on their own shadow, traced it on the wall. This is how the art of drawing originated in Egypt, and the hieroglyphic figures carved on the Egyptian monuments have so little relief that they still resemble a shadow. In the ritualism of the early Jewish mysteries, the pageantry of creation was enacted, the various actors impersonating the creative agencies. The red dirt from which the Adamic man was fashioned may signify fire, particularly since Adam is related to the Yod or fire flame, which is the first letter of the sacred name Jehovah. In John 2 and 20, it is written that the temple was 40 and 6 years in the building, a statement in which St. Augustine sees a secret and sacred gematria. For, according to the Greek philosophy of numbers, the numerical value of the name Adam is 46. Adam thus becomes the type of the temple, for the house of God, like primitive man, was a microcosm or epitome of the universe. In the mysteries, Adam is accredited with having the peculiar power of spiritual generation. Instead of reproducing his kind by the physical generative processes, he caused to issue from himself, or more correctly, to be reflected upon substance, a shadow of himself. This shadow he then ensouled and it became a living creature. These shadows, however, remain only as long as the original figure of which they are the reflections endures. For with the removal of the original, the host of likenesses vanish with it. Herein is the key to the allegorical creation of Eve out of the side of Adam. For Adam, representative of the idea or pattern, is reflected into the material universe as a multitude of ensouled images, which collectively are designated Eve. According to another theory, the division of the sexes took place in the archetypal sphere. Hence, the shadows in the lower world were divided into two classes consistent with the orders established in the archetype. In the apparently incomprehensible attraction of one sex for the other, Plato recognized the cosmic urge toward reunion of the severed halves of this archetypal being. Noah and his zodiacal ark from Meyer's Kabbalah. The early church fathers, notably Tertullian, Firmilian, Saint Cyprian, Saint Augustine, and Saint Chrysostom, recognized in the ark a type of symbol of the Holy Catholic Church. Bede the Venerable declared that Noah in all things typified Christ, as Noah alone of his generation was just, so Christ alone was without sin. With Christ there was a sevenfold spirit of grace. With Noah, 7 righteous persons. Noah by water and wood saved his own family. Christ by baptism and the cross saves Christians. The ark was built of wood that did not decay. The church is composed of men who will live forever, for this ark means the church which floats upon the waves of the world. The diagram shown above is also reproduced in the Rosicrucians by Hargrave Jennings. This author adds to the original diagram appearing in Antiquitatum Judicarum Libri 9, the signs of the zodiac, placing Aries at the head and continuing in sequential order to Leo, which occupies the 5th cross section of the arc. Jennings assigns the panel containing the door to the undivided constellation of Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, which is continued into the first subdivision of the 2nd section, and the remaining 4 crest sections to the constellations of Sagittarius to Pisces inclusive. A study of the plate discloses the arc to be divided into 11 main sections, and along the base and roof of each section are shown 3 subdivisions, thus making in all the sacred number, occupying the position corresponding to the generative system of the human body. Will also be noted the cross upon the door of the central section. 2 openings are shown in the ark. One, the main door representing the orifice through which the animal lives, descend into physical existence. The other, a small window proximate to the crown of the head, through which the spirit gains liberty according to the ancient rites. When the androgenic Scorpio Virgo was separated and the balance of harmony made from Scorpio and placed between Scorpio or male and Virgo female, then appeared the 32 constellations or signs as we now have them. The ark is 3 stories high, perhaps to symbolize heaven, man, and earth. In the figure of the man, notice the parting of the hair in the middle of the forehead and the arrangement of the beard, whiskers, mustache, and the hair on the back of the neck and the shoulders. Exactly what is to be inferred by the division of the sexes as symbolically described in Genesis is a much debated question. That man was primarily androgynous is quite universally conceded, and it is a reasonable presumption that he will ultimately regain this bisexual state. As to the manner in which this will be accomplished, 2 opinions are advanced. One school of thought affirms that the human soul was actually divided into 2 parts, male and female, and that man remains an unperfected creature until these parts are reunited through the emotion which man calls love. From this concept has grown the much abused doctrine of soulmates, who must quest through the ages until the complementary part of each severed soul is discovered. The modern concept of marriage is to a certain degree founded upon this ideal. According to the other school, the so-called division of the sexes resulted from suppression of one pole of the androgynous being in order that the vital energies manifesting through it might be diverted to development of the rational faculties. From this point of view, man is still actually androgynous and spiritually complete, but in the material world, the feminine part of man's nature and the masculine part of woman's nature are quiescent. Through spiritual unfoldment and knowledge imparted by the mysteries, however, the latent element in nature is gradually brought into activity, and ultimately the human being thus regains sexual equilibrium. By this theory, woman is elevated from the position of being man's errant part to one of complete equality. From this point of view, marriage is regarded as a companionship in which 2 complete individualities manifesting opposite polarities are brought into association, that each may thereby awaken the qualities latent in the other, and thus assist in the attainment of individual completeness. The first theory may be said to regard marriage as an end, the second as a means to an end. The deeper schools of philosophy have leaned toward the latter as more adequately acknowledging the infinite potentialities of divine completeness in both aspects of creation. The Christian church is fundamentally opposed to the theory of marriage, claiming that the highest degree of spirituality is achievable only by those preserving the virginal state. This concept seemingly originated among certain sects of the early Gnostic Christians, who taught that to propagate the human species was to increase and perpetuate the power of the demiurges, for the lower world was looked upon as an evil fabrication created to ensnare the souls of all born into it. Hence, it was a crime to assist in bringing souls to earth. When, therefore, the unfortunate father or mother shall stand before the final tribunal, all their offspring will also appear and accuse them of being the cause of those miseries attendant upon physical existence. This view is strengthened by the allegory of Adam and Eve, whose sin through which humanity has been brought low is universally admitted to have been concerned with the mystery of generation. Mankind, owing to Father Adam its physical existence, regards its progenitor as the primary cause of its misery, and in the judgment day, rising up as a mighty progeny, will accuse its common paternal ancestor. Those Gnostic sects, maintaining a more rational attitude on the subject, declared the very existence of the lower worlds to signify that the Supreme Creator had a definite purpose in their creation. To doubt his judgment was therefore a grievous error. The church, however, seemingly arrogated to itself the astonishing prerogative of correcting God in this respect, for wherever possible, it continued to impose celibacy, a practice resulting in an alarming number of neurotics. In the mysteries, celibacy is reserved for those who have reached a certain degree of spiritual unfoldment. When advocated for the mass of enlightened humanity, however, it becomes a dangerous heresy, fatal alike to both religion and philosophy. As Christendom in its fanaticism has blamed every individual Jew for the crucifixion of Jesus, so with equal consistency, it has maligned every member of the feminine sex. In Vindication of Eve, philosophy claims that the allegory signifies merely that man is tempted by his emotions to depart from the sure path of reason. Many of the early church fathers sought to establish a direct relationship between Adam and Christ, thereby obviously discounting the extremely sinful nature of man's common ancestor, since it is quite certain that when St. Augustine likens Adam to Christ and Eve to the church, he does not intend to brand the latter institution as the direct cause of the fall of man. For some inexplicable reason, however, religion has ever regarded intellectualism, in fact, every form of knowledge, as fatal to man's spiritual growth. In Ignoratine friars are an outstanding example of this attitude. In this ritualistic drama, possibly derived from the Egyptians, Adam, banished from the Garden of Eden, represents man philosophically exiled from the sphere of truth. Through ignorance, man falls. Through wisdom, he redeems himself. The Garden of Eden represents the house of the mysteries. See the vision of Enoch, in the midst of which grew both the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Man, the banished Adam, seeks to pass from the outer court of the sanctuary, the exterior universe, into the sanctum sanctorum. But before him rises a vast creature armed with a flashing sword that, moving slowly but continually, sweeps clear and wide circle, and through this ring pass not, the Adamic man cannot break. The cherubim address the seeker thus: Man, thou art dust, and to dust thou shalt return. Thou wert fashioned by the builder of forms, thou belongest to the sphere of form, and the breath that was breathed into thy soul was the breath of form, and like a flame it shall flicker out. More than thou art thou canst not be. Thou art a denizen of the outer world, and it is forbidden thee to enter this inner place. And the Adam replies, Many times have I stood within this courtyard and begged admission to my father's house, and thou hast refused it me and sent me back to wander in darkness. True it is that I was fashioned out of the dirt, and that my Maker could not confer upon me the boon of immortality. But no more shalt thou send me away, for wandering in the darkness I have discovered that the Almighty hath decreed my salvation, because he hath sent me out of the most hidden mystery, his only begotten, who didst take upon himself the world fashioned by the demiurges. Upon the elements of that world was he crucified, and from him hath poured forth the blood of my salvation. And God, entering into his creation, hath quickened it and established therein a road that leadeth to himself. While my Maker could not give me immortality, immortality was inherent in the very dust of which I was composed. For before the world was fabricated and before the demiurges became the regents of nature, the eternal life had impressed itself upon the face of the cosmos. This is its sign, the cross. Do you now deny me entrance, I who have at last learned the mystery of myself? And the voice replies, He who is aware is, behold. Gazing about him, Adam finds himself in a radiant place, in the midst of which stands a tree with flashing jewels for fruit, and entwined about its trunk a flaming winged serpent crowned with a diadem of stars. It was the voice of the serpent that had spoken. Who art thou? Demands the Adam. I, the serpent answers, am Satan, who was stoned. I am the adversary, the Lord who is against you, the one who pleads for your destruction before the eternal tribunal. I was your enemy upon the day that you were formed. I have led you into temptation. I have delivered you into the hands of evil. I have maligned you. I have striven ever to achieve your undoing. I am the guardian of the tree of knowledge, and I have sworn that none whom I can lead astray shall partake of its fruits. The Adam replies, "For uncounted ages I have been thy servant. In my ignorance I listened to thy words, and they led me into paths of sorrow. Thou hast placed in my mind dreams of power, and when I struggled to realize those dreams, they brought me naught but pain. Thou hast sowed in me the seeds of desire, and when I lusted after the things of the flesh, agony was my only recompense. Thou hast sent me false prophets and false reasoning, and when I strove to grasp the magnitude of truth, I found thy laws were false, and only dismay rewarded my strivings. I am done with thee forever, O artful spirit. I have tired of thy world of illusions. No longer will I labor in thy vineyards of iniquity. Get thee behind me, tempter, and the host of thy temptations. There is no happiness, no peace, no good, no future in the doctrines of selfishness, hate, and passion preached by thee. All these things do I cast aside. Renounced is thy rule forever." And the serpent makes answer, "Behold, O Adam, the nature of thy adversary." The serpent disappears in a blinding sunburst of radiance, and in its place stands an angel resplendent and shining, golden garments with great scarlet wings that spread from one corner of the heavens to the other. Dismayed and awestruck, the Adam falls before the divine creature. "I am the Lord who is against thee, and thus accomplishes thy salvation," continues the voice. "Thou hast hated me, but through the ages yet to be thou shalt bless me, for I have led thee out of the sphere of the demiurges. I have turned thee against the illusion of worldliness. I have weaned thee of desire. I have awakened in thy soul the immortality of which I myself partake. Follow me, O Adam, for I am the way, the life, and the truth." And with that, we're going to end. Stay tuned for the analysis of tarot cards. Thanks again for listening in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Peace be unto you all. Shalom.